And I think that thought that man has both potentialities within himself, and we've seen them over and over again, these grand expanded potentialities in extreme display. And we've talked about these situations in the podcast over and over again, in the Burma railway that was built by the prisoners of war, and the prisoners of war were tortured and killed by the Japanese, and the genocide in Rwanda and the rape of Nanking. And we've also seen the other potentiality. And we've seen that over and over again, that potentiality of goodness and of sacrifice. Those men that we've seen over and over again that lay down their lives for their brothers, and in doing so protect our freedom. But it's important to note that again, that whether the good or the evil is actualized in the minds of men, that is not based on conditions, but on decisions. And this doesn't only apply to good and evil. Of course, that's the most expansive thought that we can apply this to, but it also applies to everything we choose to do or choose not to do, and everything we choose to become or not to become. It's us. It's our choice, and we are responsible. We are responsible to be good instead of evil, to be strong instead of weak, to become what we want to become, not what we let ourselves become. We own the course. And with every decision that we make, we actualize ourselves. We become what we choose. Swine or saints? So when you make decisions, every decision, think about where that decision leads and what that decision will make you become. And then self-determine, choose what will make you a better person. And even in situations where you feel you have no choice at all, you still have one last freedom, and that is to choose your own attitude in any given set of circumstances. Keep that choice. Keep that freedom, that hard choice. The disciplined choice. And with the discipline to make the right choice, maintain your freedom. And I think that's all I've got for tonight. Powerful book.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how, I can't help but think of this, like how they talk about the SS officers, the Nazis, the guys there who are just savages, obviously, but are they really savages as people though? or is it a circumstantial thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're trained to kind of regard this, the Jews or these groups of people as, beneath them and all this stuff. But like, are they savages just as individuals? Because it takes a savage to do some of this stuff, especially like grabbing a baby and smashing his, as the book said, skull against the wall. Like that's like subhuman behavior, But when he goes home, he has kids. Is he like, I don't care if these kids, ultimately, if their heads get bit, I'm sure he's not like that. I'm sure he's just a normal person who'd just be just as weak as all of us if your kid stubs its toe and starts crying,
Yeah, well, we're going to explore. I got some books in the queue to explore the other side of this, and they're very revealing about some of that. But again, it's you're right that some of these guys, were normal, right? Some of these Nazis were normal, and they were doing their job, and that's one of the worst. There's a whole argument on whether that even is allowable. Like if you're doing your job, and I'll tell you what, in the U.S. military, that doesn't work. That's an excuse that we don't have. You can't say, hey, I got ordered to do this thing that was against the law or against ethical values. Doesn't matter. I still can't do it. That's not an excuse. And that came directly from this attitude that Nazis said, hey, I was just following orders. Hey, it wasn't my fault. I was just following orders. No, actually, you can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. Yeah. So as far as the normalcy, sure, they might have been normal when they went home, but that doesn't remove their guilt at all.
Yeah, fully.
You can't take a baby and smash its head against the wall. You don't get a pass on that one, whether you ordered to do it or not.
No.
There's certain moral standards that exist, and you can't violate them. And if you do, you're guilty. Doesn't matter what else you did.
Back then, who was kind of the authority on that? Like, where the moral was? It like a global thing, or is it because obviously Hitler would be like, whatever.
Well, there's different societies that had different viewpoints. Obviously, the Nazis. Hence the war. The Nazis and the Japanese both felt, okay, we can do what we need to do to dominate.
Yeah.
And whether that's the rape in Nanking or whether that's the concentration camps and the final solution, both those things were in their societies. Now, there was people inside those societies. And I don't know. I don't know of any Japanese. I'm sure there were some Japanese that were against. I mean, even when we read the rape in Nanking, there was a Nazi in Nanking, remember, that sheltered people. So there's an example. Here's a guy. Now, he didn't know what was going on with the final solution back in Germany. At least it doesn't appear that way. Right. But this is what makes morality and ethical decision making so challenging. Yeah. But there is, in my opinion, a certain standard moral code that human beings live by. Yeah. And that is a universal, relatively universal. I shouldn't even say it's universal. Right. There's the way that I believe that there's morals and standards that human beings should live by. Yeah. And when you start stepping outside those bounds, you're going on the wrong side.
Yeah, and like anything, man, it's like obviously a spectrum, and then what you're talking about, that universal line that you cross, it's like actually when you really look at the line, it's a universal gray area and then when you really look closer, but I think that the circumstances don't really fall within the confines of that gray area very often. So it's easy to be like, that's obviously right, that's obviously wrong. But then every once in a while, these gray areas emerge, and then it's like this big debate, and it depends on who you are.
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time in the gray areas, to be honest with you. Like in my thought pattern, I don't spend a lot of time in the gray areas. Right. But I spend time, because to me, it is pretty obvious. Yeah. Like when you're ISIS and you're systematically raping 12-year-old girls and boys, you don't get to live. That doesn't work. Yeah. That's not part of my deal over here. You die. And when you take people and you put them in cages and you burn them to death, you don't get to do that. Just like these Nazis that are putting people in, you don't get to do that. No. Yeah. We go to war, we fight, and we win. Yeah. That's the way it works. Yeah. Now, these gray areas that you're talking about, I don't mess around in those gray areas. Yeah. I think there's too much. There's turbulence in there, right? And a lot of times you look at it from the outside and it's hard to tell what it is, what it actually is happening in there, right? And maybe that's not the best policy, but I won't escalate something personally until I see it go outside the lines of what I deem to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, once you get outside those lines, you're done.
Well, thankfully, you're a little bit smart in a way where, whether you name these things or not, there's always a particular standard that you go by, So just like the difference between killing someone and when someone says murder, murder is clearly defined, So if you murder someone, like killing someone is this broad thing. You killed them, accidentally killed them. You killed them after planning it.
Yeah, there's a million
you killed
little
them,
things.
The revenge and all that. That's killing someone. But murder is defined. So.
Yeah. Well, somebody asked me when I did Tim Ferriss's second time, and someone asked me something along the lines of, well, who defines these rules? Which is basically what you just asked me. And I think there is an answer to who defines these rules. In warfare, it's the law of armed conflict. It's the Geneva Convention. We follow those laws.
Right.
They're very clearly defined what you can and can't do. Boom.
Right.
That's it. Next question.
Yeah. And I mean, unless you straight up disagree with the Geneva Convention, and because of your personal moral code. But as long as you have, again, a standard that you're going by, that'll reduce the gray areas by a lot. And
yes,
still,
it will,
they're going to be there, but it's easier to operate in black and white when you have standards, and it won't always be easy, but, it's like...
Well, let me... This when we start getting in the gray area, and you're sitting here saying that I'm all black and white, and I'm actually saying that, hey, once you cross this line, but guess what? Yeah. Those lines can get blurry, too.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because I heard about a guy that was on a documentary he was a Western journalist of some kind. And I got to watch this documentary. I'm sure someone will tell us what it is, but somebody else told me about it. The Western journalist, he's embedded with insurgents in Iraq. Mm. And he's filming. And they're going out and attacking coalition forces.
Dang, yeah.
Right? And I guess while he's doing it, he's trying to get his story and do his job, but then all of a sudden they're attacking coalition forces, right? Yeah. Now, there's a gray area. Now, let's say, if you want to take that example to the extreme, if we're in a firefight and I see a guy with a camera who's wearing a press badge.
Following an insurgent.
Right. I mean, it ain't going to work out good for him. Yeah. Because it's not like I'm going to say, okay, well, he's with insurgents. But what I'm saying is that's one example of many that you could get into, where also another thing that happened in Iraq a lot was people changed sides, and they went from supporting the terrorists to supporting the coalition, and then back again, and then back again. So how do you balance those? Yeah. And I'll tell you how I balanced them was, how can we achieve our mission? Yeah. And that sounds like one of those, hey, mission focus, but it's true. I look at, okay, this guy, a year ago was being targeted by coalition forces for being a bad guy. Now he has changed course. So what am I supposed to do? Still prosecute him? Or is he going to help us achieve our mission of overall victory? Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut him some moral slack. Yeah. Because we're going to win. So those are hard things to...
But that's exactly what I mean, though. See, the standard in your case became the overall mission.
Yes.
So, you have that... It's not like just some guy floating down the road through life being like, hey, I don't feel good about that right there, so I feel this way, so I'm going to do it. It's not that. It's like there's a standard, very concrete attached to it. Still, gray areas going to emerge, but like I said, it just reduces that gray area. You have a standard to attach it to.
The bottom line is, this is why leadership is hard.
Yes.
The whole idea of leadership, whether it's in combat or whether it's in the business world or whether it's part of a team or whether it's part of a family or whether it's in a concentration camp or whether it's in a prisoner of war camp, leadership is hard. There's gray areas, like when Captain Plum was saying, hey, he got told an order, make communications with this guy at all costs. At all costs. That means I'm going to get beaten and tortured and die by the guards to get this guy this piece of communication. Is he going to follow that? Guess what? No. He had to make a judgment and say, you know what? No, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. So this gray area, that went outside the bounds of the gray area. And he said, no, I'll do my best. Yeah. I understand that it's critical, but I'm going to stay within me staying alive. Yeah. Right? So that is what makes leadership hard, is you have to constantly make these decisions where they're gray area and you're doing your best, you're assessing. Yeah. And that's again, to me, it was always, I love that. I love that about leadership. I loved weighing those decisions out. And I love discussing them with my guys up and down the chain of command and saying, hey, here's where we're at. Let me tell you exactly where we're at.
Yeah.
I'll use Leif. Leif, here's what's going on. This is the situation. What do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I think this. Okay, that's a good point. But did you think about that? Oh, that's a good one. You know what I mean? We're going to have those conversations. And I had never had any problem opening my mind up to these various opinions that people had. And I think as a leader, that's a huge piece of building trust up and down the chain of command is when you have an open mind to discuss things with people. And that also double gravitational pull, Echo Charles, helps you build the relationship.
Yeah.
Helps you build the relationship and helps you say, oh, you know what? Like when it's the minute I'm in there, I'm talking, I'm like, hey, Echo, we got a gray area here. Yeah. We got a customer that is threatening to put us on Yelp, but we didn't do anything wrong. How do you think we should handle it? Okay, well, you think we should just tell them, go ahead, put it on Yelp. Yeah. We don't care, and we'll go to Yelp and we'll talk to them. That might be the good answer. But also it might be good to say, bro, wait, why are you so mad?
Right.
Customer. Let's talk. Hey, we want to refund you. We want to take care of you because our customers are important to us. Maybe you'll give us a positive thing on you. You know what I'm saying? There's all this gray area.
Yeah.
And if you have an open mind to discuss things with your team up and down the chain of command, you know what you'll do is you'll get to, in that gray area, you'll start to get clarity. Yeah. You'll start to get clarity and you'll start to see better. And you can move through the gray area without being so decisive that in a gray area, you don't know if it's black or white, right?
Right.
So if you decide as the leader, I'm going black.
Yeah.
Going black. Then when the gray area clears up, it was white that you should have gone with.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that. In many cases, you can say, okay, I'm going to lean a little bit towards the black because that's what I'm feeling. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you start moving there and you start seeing that, no, this is going to be a white decision.
Yeah.
Okay, I can recover from that. I can move backwards and repair what decision was made. And the best way to do that is say, hey, guys, here's the situation. I thought that black was going to be the right decision. I started leaning in that direction. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Now I see that white is the right answer, and we're going with white. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Yeah.
Does everyone understand why I did that? Oh, you don't understand why? Let me explain it to you. Here's what I thought. Here's what I saw. Next time, do you want me to contact you so you can? That's what I'm talking about. And by the way, when I'm doing that, I'm building relationships with my team, which is what I want to do. I just was talking to a leader the other day, and I told him and reiterated something I've said over and over again. The people that did things for me in the teams that were in the Army, the Marine Corps, in the SEAL teams, in my platoon, up and down the chain of command, doesn't matter. 99.9% of it wasn't because I had some kind of rank or privilege over them. It was always because I had a good relationship with people. And when you build that good relationship with people, that's what it's all about. Then they do things for you. And you know what? You do things for them too. It's not a one-way street that I'm talking about because you won't build any relationships if you're building a one-way street, right? No one's going to be your friend after you just take advantage of them over and over again. Like those people that call you only when they need something from you, right? Now, I actually don't have a problem with that because I don't communicate with a lot of people, right? I communicate on social media with a bunch of different people.
They'll get you there too.
But as far as like when one of my buddies calls me up and says, hey, I need this favor, I'm like, cool, on it. I haven't talked to him for 9 months. He's only calling me because he needs something from me. Doesn't matter. People do that with me all the time, and it's cool. Now, this isn't a big group of people. There's like 6 people in the world. And those same 6 people, they don't call to wish me happy birthday. They don't call to tell me, Merry Christmas. They call me up and say, hey, I need this from you. Can you do it? And I'm like, got it. No factor.
Do you even have a birthday?
Negative. I have a manufacturing date.
So funny. Like, I'm just trying to imagine someone calling you to wish you happy birthday. I mean, maybe like your wife or something.
It was awkward when I got in the civilian sector and people would be like, when's your birthday? And I'd be like, what do you care?
What do you care?
What are you talking about? Why are you trying to get my personal information? I'm going to attack you.
Hey, what sign are you?
No.
Yeah, you know. That's the thing.
What was the other funny thing about the birthday deal? Oh, that's like getting presents. I'm not good with presents.
Yeah, man.
Like, don't get me any presents.
Right.
Because I don't want what you got me.
Yeah.
If I want something, I already have it.
You get it.
Yeah. So what you got me isn't going to be appreciated. There's one gift that my wife got me one time. And I've been thinking about why I haven't talked about this particular whole situation. And there's a band called the White Stripes.
Sure, White Stripes.
And the White
Dig it.
Stripes, Jack White, Meg White, the White Stripes are awesome. They're an awesome band.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many layers with the White Stripes.
Layers.
First of all, I'll tell you 2 layers that I love about the White Stripes. Number 1, all their clothing, guitars, drums, keyboards, everything that they have on stage and everything that they have on their record albums, everything that they have is either red, black, or white on all their records since day one. Damn. That's number 1.
Sweet.
Number 2, they only have 3 sounds in any of their songs at any one time. So those 3 sounds could be drums, vocals, guitar. They could be drums, keyboards, vocals. They could be keyboards, guitar, vocals, but they only have 3 sounds at any one time.
So vocals is one of the sounds.
Vocals is one of the sounds.
Only 2 instruments.
There's only 2 people in the band. Anyways, the White Stripes is an awesome band, and my wife bought me tickets to go see the White Stripes. Now, I didn't even think about it. I never pay attention to when bands are playing or whatever. So I don't use this term very often, but I was overjoyed that she got me tickets to the White Stripes. I was so stoked. And then Meg White had some issues, and they canceled the whole tour, and they never played again.
Dang.
And they were like a couple of weeks away from being in San Diego, where I was going to go see the White Stripes.
So the question is, ultimately, grand scheme of things, was that a good gift to give Jocko?
That was an awesome gift to give me.
So was it the thought that counts in this case?
Yes, it was a beautiful gift that she got me, and I couldn't believe she thought of it.
Yeah,
because normally it's like, oh, you got me a sweater from some store that I hate.
Yeah.
No, I'm really hard to shop for.
Right.
If I want something, I have it, and I don't want that much.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I want something, I have it. Like once every 18 months, I want something, and then I get it.
Yeah. I'll get you like a new T-shirt or something. You wear that one.
No, this T-shirt's fine. Don't give me a new one. This one works good.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's yeah, it seems like a good
We just
gift.
went off on a tangent.
I feel like you went off on a tangent. You know
why? Because I was listening to the White Stripes the other day, and I was thinking, I never give the White Stripes the props that they deserve.
Yeah, man.
And Jack White the props that he deserves,
right,
as a singer-songwriter.
Aren't they brother and sister?
They're not.
Allegedly.
That's fake. Alleged.
That's
they
the
were
image.
actually husband and wife. They got divorced, but they always claimed to be brother-sister.
Dang.
It's my little sister, Meg White.
More layers.
Oh, no, this is my big sister. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what he always said.
Dang. That's good, man. Cool. Well, the original point was these crazy savage type people may be normal people other than their crazy job.
Yeah, and
but I'm not saying so it's cool.
No,
I'm not saying that
what's
at all. I'm
embedded
just
in
saying
this
it's
is
weird.
you're accountable for your actions, regardless of how cool you are.
Yeah. I agree.
And that's something from any leadership position you need to be aware of. And when I say any leadership position, I mean you as a frontline trooper. Because if you as a frontline trooper is getting told to do something that you know is morally, ethically, or legally wrong, and you still do it, it's on you. Sure, you can point the finger and blame the higher-ups, and the higher-ups should be burned too if they told you to do something that was wrong. Yeah. But you need to be accountable for what you did. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah, agree.
It's a rough tour.
Yeah.
No one wants to play that game. The Nazis wanted to play that game. Oh, it's not mine. Hey, I was ordered to do this. Yeah. Can't do that. You can't say that. Don't get that excuse.
Yeah.
You don't get the I was a good person and I took care of my kids even though I was shoving people into a gas chamber. You don't get to play that game.
No. Yeah, man, it's too much. Rather, there's a small little documentary online. I don't know. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was about the executioner in the Middle East somewhere, one of these countries where, he has his sword and it's his job,
Yeah.
And
he's a straight up executioner, yeah.
That's it. That's just his job.
Modern day job, by the way.
And he's like, it wasn't old school.
No, it's like on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like last week.
Yeah. But it's like, it's funny because the whole feel of the documentary was just real like, oh yeah, this guy has a cool job. And he's like slicing people's heads off with great precision. And he's so good at his job. Here's his family and they're loving, and they're, he's playing with his kids. It's like all this stuff. It's just weird, man. Anyway.
Yeah, there's another culture.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of gray areas in that one too, my man.
Indeed.
Kind of. Anyway.
Or not.